We're back, baby. The UFC took a bit of a hiatus there, but how many fights do we have coming at us? It's been absolutely insane. Bellator's about to get kicked off tonight. We had a couple of CFFC fights that were insane. Mans are losing their fingers and just craziness all around. We had Demetrius Johnson lose via knockout with a knee, and the knees are just coming from everywhere. Legal, illegal. It's crazy. But, I'm pretty pumped for this card. I think it's going to be one of those ones that fly under the radar a little bit till you kind of start diving into these fighters. I mean, I've done a bit of homework here, and I think that we have a lot of guys that we can get absolutely pumped for. So without further ado, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit that bell to just get some notifications whenever we release some good MMA, UFC content, trying our best to dabble in all these organizations as much as we can, but back to the bread and butter. Am I right? So, last UFC card, a little bit too much hard in play, didn't do so well in the final picks that we post up on Instagram, but outside of that, what a wonderful card. We saw a lot of passing of the torches, things like that. What I like about this card, it's kind of a similar venue, but a lot smaller scale, right? You have a lot of up-and-coming guys who've maybe scored a very, underdog-esque type finish or a win in the past and are coming in against bigger contenders and things like that. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be one that people get a little bit more behind us to get to know these fighters. So let's just jump right into it, because on that first fight, right, Impa Kasanganay and Sasha Palatnikov. So let's just jump into Sasha right quick, because Sasha was a guy that I actually promoted a little bit in his fight against Luis Kosi, because I just thought that he was such a grinder. Kosi's the guy that we saw in the Dana White Contender Series. There was such a big story behind him and his brother qualifying on the same episode and both getting those contracts. And the one thing I'd want to say is that, he was very promising, but the wrestling didn't really hold up in that fight. And I think that he kind of got tired out. I think that the muscle mass, I think that, just overexerting himself. Sasha Palatnikov, despite the lack of real competition, he's kind of fought all over the world. And I really like the fact that he utilized some of the things that you're seeing in his other fights, right? Durability, both good chin, and even in the grappling exchanges, transitioning continuously and finding ways to, exert his own game plan on him. And I think in that third round, we kind of saw what happens when, the guy that really is kind of trying to throw all these power punches early in the fight kind of just fade a bit. And Sasha Palatnikov was able to keep a fairly consistent, aspect when he gets tired as well. But I just think that he's not really going too hard in the beginning, which kind of allows him to absorb a bit of punishment, still keep his game going in the third round and not be so sloppy. And, that's how he ended up getting his finish against Luis Kosi. So, when we look at Impa Kasanganay, the last fight we saw him in, we know what happened, right? Joaquin Buckley, going into that fight, I kind of talked about how Impa is such a counter strike. He really does kind of wait for his shots. He waits for you to make the first move and then tries to come back. And the funny thing about that is, when you think about it, that all stemmed from him blocking a kick, catching a kick, let's say. So he caught the kick, and then all of a sudden, boom, spin, boom, dead on the mat. I think that was just one of those things where, obviously, he didn't see it coming. But on top of that, talk about defensive striking. That once he spun, he was probably thinking about throwing some of his own shots right there. But Joaquin Buckley's a very talented striker, especially when it comes to the offensive and pushing the pace a bit. We saw that against Jordan Wright. We saw that against Impa. And against Alessio, we just saw the better, defensive striker and counter striker kind of pull through there. And that's what I really liked about Alessio's fight, because I think that we're seeing him do that to a lot of other people. And over the course of his career, he's a guy to watch out for, despite some of the funny stuff that we've seen with him and Dana backstage in that fight. But, going back to these two, the thing about Impa that I also very, very worried about is that he's cutting so much weight, right? He looked so jacked, and he was just so ripped at 185 that coming down to 170, which is, another 15-pound jump, it's kind of questionable, right? I thought he looked all right at the weigh-ins. Probably not one of the worst guys, let's say. There was a couple guys who looked a bit worse, and, a couple people that also missed weight. We lost to Norma Dumont and Aaron Blanchfield fight, unfortunately. That was something I was really looking forward to. Seeing a prospect get signed that quickly and hopping in would have been nice. But, in this case, I think that Sasha has a chance that if he's able to kind of grind this out to the third round, we're looking at Impa getting up to a minus 300 line right now. That's pretty insane to me based on what we've seen Sasha do, especially late in the fight, knowing that Impa's, going down in weight. I do still think that that's going to help him have a bit of a size advantage. I think it's going to look the part, right? When you think about how good he looked at middleweight in terms of just size, maybe not the tallest, but he had that structure, he's built like a house. And so I think in this case, that's going to help him a bit more. He's a bit immobile though, he's kind of like I just said, a brick house. And I think he kind of moves that way with Sasha. If he's able to keep the fight moving, get it up against the fence a little bit, and avoid some of these like counter strikes that are keep coming his way, because there's going to be some power behind it. And I think that from what we've seen from Sasha, despite such a short-lived UFC career so far, the durability is there. And I think his ability to scramble is going to help. Impa is going to be looking for some power counter strikes. He's going to be looking to kind of land some of those kicks to get this guy slow. And I think that when you look at this one, is there a decision that's most likely going to happen? Probably. It's tough to see either of these guys finishing. Maybe it's on the ground quickly, Sasha in the late rounds. Maybe he can kind of lock something up. But even if it's a knockout, it's just I can only see him really kind of pulling something off late, similar how he did to Lewis Kosi, because it's just experience-wise plays a factor here. And I think that Impa is going to be able to, even impose his own game plan for that first round, maybe in the first two, and see his own way play out. But again, weight cut's massive here. Size is going to be huge. And I think the durability of Sasha is going to surprise a lot of guys. And, kudos to Impa if he's able to score a massive knockout, right? That's something we really want to see from him, kind of right the ship a little bit. But, may the best man win in this one, because I think it's going to be an absolute beauty to kick off the card. When it comes to picking right now, I'm looking at the lines and I just can't help but feel like if I had to, gun to my head, pick someone, I would really lean a Sasha way, only because the juice is there. I think that skill-wise, he really stacks up here. And I think from what we've seen from Impa, unless he's able to push the pace and really start dishing out some damage, change levels, and kind of almost play Sasha's game better, he's going to be in a position where he's just constantly waiting for those bigger strikes, but Sasha's going to be able to change levels, maybe get him tired, things like that. If I'm Impa, I'm definitely looking to finish this fight within the first two rounds, because, I myself at 170, I'm trying to figure out how good I'm going to look in real competition come third round. So yeah, that's a fun fight. Like I said, Sasha knocked out Lewis Kosi. Huge surprise to a lot of people. Maybe not me, but I do think there's some potential for him to pull off an upset, but at the same time, I think Impa's made the right decisions in terms of, you don't go down to 170 looking the way he does without having some kind of background behind that. And I think that, this is really going to be I guess, the last straw, if you will, on where he stands in the UFC. I think that if he can pull off the win, at least he's seeing a bit of a brighter future here, because that at middleweight, I think he was struggling, and that Joaquin Buckley fight kind of, was the nail in the coffin. But, very exciting fight. Looking forward to it.